If you're a conservative and you're concerned with Zionist influence in our government and you're America first and you want a candidate who will put America first and will adopt a proper foreign policy of focusing only on our country and the Western Hemisphere and focusing on actual America first things like inflation, the national debt, the cost of living, the housing market, young people, their social issues, what people are going through in the millennial and Gen Z demographics, then no, JD Vance won't be our guy. And he will look like he's our guy and he will talk like he's our guy. But it runs much deeper than what he's going to be talking about in regards to this topic, because JD Vance will ultimately be just an illusion of choice for Republican voters when it comes to the establishment GOP. It's almost too good to be true, is what the circumstance will be, because it is too good to be true. Many Republicans will think this time they've outsmarted the system. This time they've recognized, no, Marco Rubio's the neocon. We can't vote for him. He'll support Israel in their wars. He'll be hawkish on Iran. He'll get us involved in the Middle East. We can't have that anymore. And Republican voters will be made to feel smart for recognizing that. They'll say, we're not going to be fooled again. It's JD Vance who we want. He's against the war. Aren't you listening to what he's saying on his campaign? But in doing so, they'll completely be overlooking the fact that JD Vance is in favor of big tech. He's aligned with big tech. And sadly, beyond that, many people will hear this and they'll think, well, big tech seems a little shady, but what's the big deal? Well, because by big tech, I'm talking about Palantir. And this is what we need to get out here information-wise when it comes to Vance. This can't be spoken of enough. I see David Cooper, one of my founding members. He's going off right now because I know David Cooper he's big on this AI messaging. And it's because it needs to be said. It does. He says, correct, 100. AI, goodbye freedom. Exactly. We're going to get into this. Because Palantir is what's going to be associated with JD Vance. He's backed, funded, and supported, JD Vance is, by Peter Thiel. And really, he's backed by Peter Thiel now. He's associated with Peter Thiel is what I should say. Should he decide to run for president, which is actually not a 100% confirmation yet. We're not sure. Because JD Vance knows how disastrous everything's going with the Trump administration, and by association therein, he might not have a great chance of winning. He may take a gap year, or a gap 4 years. But there's a good chance he's going to run. And the fact that he's being so openly critical about Israel, I think, is his way of trying to rebuild momentum towards a 2028 presidential run. So let's assume he's running. He's backed by Peter Thiel. He's associated with them now. He will be funded and supported by Peter Thiel if he does. And Peter Thiel is a very wealthy Jewish billionaire donor to the Republican Party, to the Republican side of the aisle. And Peter Thiel is the owner of Palantir. And what is Palantir? Well, Palantir is the ultimate AI surveillance state system. This is what Palantir is. I've explained this in the past. Peter Thiel tends to be a bit of a nerd, I guess, in his everyday life. He likes Star Wars, he likes Jurassic Park, he likes all the movies, he likes Lord of the Rings. Palantir is the orb of Saruman. That orb is the orb that allows Saruman, the witch, to literally view all of Middle-earth. He can spy on Middle-earth using it, communicate with Sauron using it, and subsequently, anybody who actually is around the orb, specifically holding it really, can also be easily influenced by the orb of Saruman as well, known as Palantir. That's the orb's name in the movie. And that's really the stated reason why Peter Thiel named it this, because he's a Lord of the Rings fan, and he thought the orb of Saruman, the witch, was cool and representative of what he wanted his AI company to be, which is an AI surveillance state company. And we all know who Peter Thiel is too. And so it's the AI surveillance state, and it's the expansion, by the way, therein of AI data centers, which is something we're already seeing play out in America with a lot of, to Americans' credit, a lot of great resistance when you look at the news. One of my other loyal viewers here, who's always lurking, our resident cool boomer, Howard Clegg, just commented on my stuff this morning, that in his town, they rejected it and sent them packing. No data center. That needs to happen all across America. In my town, that sort of happened too, though sadly north of me, in the county north of me, there's been a data center built. It wasn't stopped. But that's what is happening right now. The data centers are being built for this reason. And in doing so, these data centers are destructive in many ways. You need to do your own research on that. I won't spend too much time covering that. But that's why they're being built now. They're being built in preparation for what is to come. And originally, what was supposed to come, like I said, was Vance, the golden boy, succeeding Trump's presidency, taking Trump's position as president. And because he's backed by Peter Thiel, this is all meant to come into fruition starting in 2028. And there's a lot of people, by the way, who really don't know or won't connect all of this together. That's what I'm going to do right now, because this is a classic controlled opposition play. It's really what it is. Again, if it's just Vance and Rubio, that's controlled opposition. The options may appear right now, especially, to be splitting apart, with Rubio now taking a more silent approach in light of the disastrous MOU being signed, but also being backed a lot by the pro-Israel lobby. The Israeli firster commentators on X are hyping up Rubio, and they're even disparaging Vance in the same breath. And as a result, it's sort of like the separate stances are happening right now. This huge fracture as a result of Israel's sabotage efforts of peace in the Middle East and their actions in general, and the American public becoming more educated, and that fact being known and observed by the elites. It's all splitting. And so the options they want you to think are genuine and real, and it's Marco Rubio and JD Vance, but ultimately they're going to fulfill the same vision. And at first, hearing that at first, you might think, oh, this is a crackpot conspiracy guy. This is the truth. The fork in the road is appearing right now, but it's not meant to remain split. That fork is going to go like this and rejoin right up into the same road. It's not going to stay apart. And it's going to rejoin much sooner than you think. Why? Because of Palantir's roots, which is not something I've gotten into yet. I've explained why we don't want an AI surveillance state, how it's anti-conservatism, how it's anti-freedom in general in the past. But Palantir's roots are really where we begin to connect the dots. Peter Thiel, the owner of Palantir, has deep connections with the intelligence communities. Palantir was literally built on CIA and In-Q-Tel seed money. Now, In-Q-Tel is the CIA's own venture capital arm, and it pumped about $2 million into the foundation and the startup of Palantir back in 2005. Now, what you have to understand is why that's significant. When the CIA pumps millions of dollars into anything, that isn't just a nice, generous donation towards something that's going to be great for America's future. That is the CIA, in doing so, giving their stamp of approval on a program that they're going to ultimately use in the future and find very useful. And this is the signal, this stamp of approval by the CIA in the form of funding something like Palantir, is the signal that opens up every other closed door across all of the upper echelons of society, the elites, all of the connections Peter Thiel needs. It's all opened upon seeing that stamp of approval by the CIA in the form of millions of dollars in backing. And it allows Peter Thiel to begin the process of developing, creating, and fast-tracking all of it within the Palantir program. Ever since then, by the way, Peter Thiel's company has also been built with constant close collaboration within the intelligence community. Intelligence community analysts have all had firm hands in the development and building of the Palantir program. And since Palantir has been backed by all of this, basically straight from Langley, they now have access to everything, because it's integrated in the intelligence community. And this means basically not just money, but I'm talking about like contracts and data access, the revolving door of the CIA and NSA officials providing all of their information and input as Palantir was built from the ground up using CIA-backed money. And Peter Thiel doesn't even try to hide any of this, by the way. He's actually remarkably open about all of this. That's how I know he's a nerd for Lord of the Rings and why he called Palantir Palantir. He's very open. He says all of this out loud, remarkably, or for the most part. I'm sure he is keeping his secrets. That's a Lord of the Rings meme for a Peter Thiel type nerd. Fine then, keep your secrets. I'm sure he does that, but he's very remarkably open, perhaps too much so, because he openly also states that Palantir is being built to help the government spy better. Okay, so he doesn't hide any of this. Now, the question you ask yourself is, spy on whom, right? The government's going to spy better because of Palantir. Whom will they be spying on? If you're naive, you would certainly just like to think it's going to be our enemies. Our government that exists to protect the people would never spy on us, would they? Of course, the answer is as obvious, sadly, as you would like to think it isn't, and it is. They're going to spy on us. This should be so obvious, because tied in with Palantir and the AI surveillance state and the increased demand and construction of AI data centers will be like what my other loyal viewer Diane commented on my video as well in regards to AI, the flock cameras. This is actually where Palantir is going to be playing a big part. There's going to be so much information flooding in that needs to be processed. It can't be processed by people. Flock cameras will be popping up all over all the major cities at first, and then eventually all over America as much as possible. America will be saturated by flock cameras, turned into a surveillance state, and the need for accurate and fast processing of all of this camera footage and of all of this information will be huge. And that's why data centers have to be everywhere, spanning across America, draining our water, dirtying our water supply, taking up our farmland, which was previously being used to grow food for humans, will now literally be an AI farm for processing power for the surveillance state. And so the flock cameras being associated with all this indicate to us who they intend on spying on. And really, it's all in the Palantir program writing. This is a pre-profiling system that they're working on. They openly identify that they feel like there will be a futuristic need for what they refer to as pre-policing, meaning that Palantir won't just rely on flock cameras that will indicate to them your habits or if whatever you tend to do in public, but they're going to use your any criminal record you may potentially have, any driving record you have, your social media, everything you've ever said on the internet. Recordings of you that may have been captured of you saying anything controversial at all of it will be formed into various different profiles, individual profiles of Americans. And in those profiles, Palantir will be used as an AI system that runs off of the power of these AI data centers and is, using the flock cameras and is funded by the CIA and our intelligence communities. It will be using all of this to create pre-profiling risk assessments on Americans. And when needed, it will pre-police high-risk individuals, meaning you'll be investigated or called into the police station for interrogation, or who knows? I know it seems outlandish to say now, but never say never to this. Perhaps maybe just arrested ahead of time for your own good. This is the stated intent of Palantir. And worse yet, I'm going to finish connecting dots for you, because this is where most people won't take this. But truthfully, I've been reporting on certain actions being taken right now by our own government in Congress, even with a GOP majority. And this is where Section 224 of the 2027 NDAA fits in, for instance. And in addition to that, what I just covered the other night with Tom Cotton, now pushing for what is, I think, Section 222 or Section 121, Section 612 or Section 622 of the Senate Intelligence Act. That's where these are fitting in. And this is the dot that I doubt anyone else will be connecting right now. So let's go over that. Before I do, be sure to like the stream if you're enjoying this content, please. This information needs to get spread out there. Even if you don't like me being conservative, etc., I am here to get out the best, most high-quality information possible, and YouTube's algorithm is encouraged to push this out to more people with the like. So double tap your phone screens, hit the thumbs up button. It's free to do, and it really does help YouTube feel encouraged to push this out in the algorithm to more people who need to see this. Let's go over this. Section 224, as I've reported on. Why is this significant? And really what I'm going to do now is connect multiple dots for you and allow you to understand why, though JD Vance, because remember this, JD Vance is critical of Israel now, and he's anti-war, but big tech. This will allow you to understand why it's controlled opposition and why the choice will simply be an illusion. Because Section 224 of the 2027 NDAA, which already has passed through the lower chambers of Congress, by the way. It's already passed through that. It's moving on up through the chambers of Congress now. It's gaining approval, bipartisan fashion approval, by the way. Section 224 of the NDAA for 2027 proposes the idea of fusing Israeli AI, cyber, and autonomous weapons tech straight into our U.S. military and government. It's literally framed as data fusion and network integration with Israel. That's what Section 224 is of the NDAA. It wants to weave in all of Israeli tech. I broke it down in greater detail on a past episode 1 or 2 days ago. You should check that out if you get a chance. But it literally demands, in summary, it demands a position be appointed that is directly under the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War, whatever it will go on to be called, which would be Pete Hegseth, for instance, right now. It demands that a position is appointed that works directly under that secretary. And in doing so is the number 2 spot by default in the Pentagon that can overrule and overpower all other positions within the Pentagon, all other offices, including the ones responsible for inspecting safety, establishing national security protocols, etc., security risks, threats, etc. This position will be second to the Secretary of War. And the job will be for it to be in that position. That person will be an Israeli czar. His sole job will be to fast track the Israeli integration process into the Pentagon and subsequently our military and government. And again, that's going to be AI, cyber, autonomous weapons, you name it. From there, that Israeli czar will also oversee the process of the construction of factories located in America that begin producing immediately and as quickly as possible all of this new tech with Israeli technology integrated into the mix. And that's where it's going to be data fusion and network integration. And big tech's going to have a huge part to play in that. Then you take Tom Cotton's more recent Section 612 of the Senate Intelligence Bill. And this bill literally proposes and would lock in, making it extremely hard to undo, permanent and enhanced sharing of intelligence between the CIA and Mossad. I covered that, yesterday or 2 days ago as well? Even going so far, by the way, as I covered the other day as well, to make it illegal going forward to restrict intelligence from the CIA to Mossad, and subsequently then the United States can no longer restrict or control what intelligence Israel has access to. This is being pushed by Tom Cotton, the Republican neocon Israel Firster, and it's Section 612 of the Senate Intelligence Act. And by the way, you have data fusion, Israeli technology, AI, all being integrated or being proposed to be integrated under Section 224. And then you have Tom Cotton with Section 612 proposing that the CIA and Mossad basically merge together and blend together, despite Mossad representing the intelligence of a foreign country. Well, remind yourself, he wants the CIA and Mossad to blend together. Well, which intelligence community did I just tell you funded Palantir from the start back in 2005 in the form of nearly $2 million? Well, as it just so happens, that was the CIA. So in a world where all of this is happening, hypothetically, because it hasn't happened yet and we have to stop it and hopefully we do. But in a world where hypothetically this is all a reality now, Israeli tech is integrated into our country fully. They're woven in. The parasite digs deeper into the host, possibly never to be removed again. And in a world where our intelligence is now no longer a secret, when it comes to it being kept a secret from foreign governments and countries like Israel. In fact, it's shared. It's comparable to a community fridge in the workplace break room. You ever stick your lunch in there and you go to check on it 2 hours later and some fat ass fucking ate it? Well, that's the proposition here in Section 612 of the Senate Intelligence Act by Tom Cotton. Mossad can just raid the fridge anytime they want, indiscriminately pulling all the intelligence that the CIA has or any of our intelligence communities here in America and look through them. It is supposed to be restricted to Middle East intelligence, I will emphasize for the sake of accuracy. But even in doing that, you understand, or maybe you don't, but I'll make you understand, there are a lot of loopholes and there's a lot of ways Americans always wind up being compromised when it comes to those restrictions. And in this world where this is all happening, you then place a big tech, Peter Thiel funded and supported JD Vance presidency into 2028 through 2032, and maybe he gets a second term that lasts all the way until January of 2037, it would be, right? You can now see how all of this would start to shape up. And that's not even the end of the road. Because I haven't even gone into the other grim reality about all of this. Something else I've been reporting on this channel from time to time, did a whole half of an episode on it already, and that is some of the legislation we're beginning to see be proposed and in some cases drafted and even voted on, like down in Florida with Randy Fine, who is aggressively pursuing this idea of anti-Semitism hate speech laws, even going so far as to get some of them passed. It's now a crime in Florida, for instance, to tape a picture of a swastika on a public building in Florida. Like a crime that's punishable by not just like a fine or community service, but like it's a crime punishable by prison time. Randy Fine wants to observe the IHRA laws, and he's ramping up the consequences for anti-Semitism. And some of it's passed already. Some of it has been ceremoniously signed in Israel by none other than Ron DeSantis, who I otherwise like as a governor. You put that into the mix with a JD Vance 2028 presidency backed by Peter Thiel, who owns Palantir, that will usher in the surveillance state, that was funded by the CIA, that is being proposed to be merged with Mossad by Tom Cotton, and also, while Section 224 is being proposed and Israel is integrating itself into our country and our military, and you understand just how severe all of this could get. And then you understand why I said the fork in the road that appears to be presenting itself now between Vance, the anti-war, critical of Israel candidate, versus Marco Rubio, who's eerily silent right now as the MOU looks disastrous, but definitely would be the more Iran hawkish, Cuba hawkish, neoconservative, pro-Israel type candidate. The fork appears to be there, but if all of this plays out the way that it looks like it possibly could be playing out, then there is no choice. There is no actual fork in the road. It's all an illusion. And really, in picking Vance over Rubio in this hypothetical 2028 Republican primary circumstance, you're just delaying by 4 to 8 years the inevitable of it coming fully circle, the road rejoining itself, and Israel then being in complete control. And all of this has to happen this way if you're a Zionist in Israel, because they understand fully and recognize outright the truth that millennials and Gen Z don't support Israel at all anymore whatsoever. Israel is only popular with millennials by 24%. It has a 24% approval rating with millennials, and that will be declining guaranteed in some of the upcoming polls, the polling data after all of this disaster. Millennials are going to hate Israel even more now. And Gen Z was already at 16% only when it came to approval. That will be lower too. And these are the future voters and future politicians of America. And that shift is coming in 2026 and 2028. It's already going to start happening. And Israel, as JD Vance so elegantly explained earlier, should not be criticizing their only ally left in this world. We were responsible for 2/3 of their defense over the last 3.5 months, according to our own vice president. And Israel knows this is true. And they also see the writing on the wall, and they also know that they need war in order to achieve their goals. But they can't get war without American support, and they won't have American support if they want war. So now what we're seeing is Israel, seemingly the Israeli government, jumping the gun even more, because the mask is completely off. And so now it's straight to the iron fist. And it's all being set up right now. So that's what I wanted to go over today. We'll end it there, honestly. I'll take a look at some chats if anybody has anything to say. I'd love to read some chats on this. I hope it's making sense for people. I hope I presented that well. This is a very important message, and I was glad to get it out there because I've been talking about the Iran war a lot, and this has to do with the Iran war, but finally it's about American politics again. And this is important because I am a conservative, but I'm not a MAGA cultist, I'm not a big tech supporter, and I'm not an Israeli government supporter. And I think a lot more people are starting to adopt that sort of position in America, but they can't be fooled because this is setting up a false choice.